Welcome back to Tearaway Unfolded, and today we'll be starting on the final section of the game, Act 3, which is a far more kind of meta kind of a thing than the previous ones were, because the previous chapters were all about other people telling our story. In this chapter, we're going to start to tell our own story. The narrators have left us. And now, even the very path we take is laying itself out for us. Which is a pretty cool idea, and I really like the way this level plays out. It's got a fun flow to it with how it kind of creates itself underfoot. It reminds me a lot of that one scene in the Halloween tree with the children building Notre Dame by walking along it. And of course, the confetti kind of gives us the path we need to take. I quite like how circuitous it is as well. It makes the world feel a lot less laid out for us, and a lot more like we're just kind of wandering around and trying to find the next thing. It feels quite a bit more primal. And I quite like stuff like the drum kind of building the floor underneath you when you jump under it, that sort of thing. There's a lot of very fun visuals with the way it kind of is even building walls around the rooms you're creating and things. There's quite a sort of a contrast as well, given the previous areas are all made out of coloured paper that's shaped into particular forms. This is just formless blank paper. It's not even newspaper. It's just blank construction paper, which really kind of sets the whole mood of this area being unconstructed. It's just a liminal space where the paper hasn't yet taken form. The scraps were previously annoyed at being formless, but this is formlessness taken to an extreme and made into an art. I quite like the little bridges you can create out of the origami paper as well. It's quite a cute little touch. And of course, sometimes it can be kind of tricky to figure out where the path's going to go next. But one thing that helps is, as you may have noticed, a few of the areas where there is no path, the paper kind of sags. And yeah, here we need to build the bridge in certain orders sometimes, because sometimes there's nowhere for the paper to actually latch onto rather. Although it does kind of feel a bit arbitrary sometimes where the bridges can start and finish. But it is a pretty cool idea for a puzzle, though. I quite like the little building the bridges and everything like that. Now, this is a tricky obstacle because of course you need to get the paper to actually latch onto that pendulum. But it's actually quite difficult to get it to do that, because the pendulum moves not erratically, but it's just kind of hard to aim correctly because of how long it takes the paper to fly across the screen. To the extent that I only really got the one on the pendulum that I get there by mistake, by accident, basically. But it's a cool idea, though. So now we can use that sticky paper to get across. I also quite like that when you go down the little rolly tubes, it doesn't actually show you where it's going to end. It just kind of builds itself underneath you. It leaves a rather cute kind of sense of panic almost about the whole situation. So now we have 3 directions of paper. Of course, we need to start by blowing one thing towards where the glue is. Well, actually, no, we don't. We start by blowing it towards where we are. That was me misremembering. And now there's some paper there to catch this paper. And then also the final direction for the last stack of paper. You don't actually need to complete the bridges to get across, so you just need to get to the platform, but I like to complete the bridges just because it looks nice. And it feels more proper as well. I quite like this little kind of circle it makes you do before it lets you go further down. I don't know if it would have allowed me to just fall there. I don't think it would have. It wouldn't have caught me. I also quite like these little pieces that kind of form a papercraft cage around you. It's quite a fun little visual thing. It's also just fun to use these little cages as well. Of course, the main thing is here, because they're construction paper, they're quite light, so you just need to blow them around. And this drum is just here to get those extra confetti, but also to teach you that the drum is there for that. Because in a minute we're going to start using it. Because here, of course, we'll need to actually start using it, and this can be quite tricky to catch, because sometimes the wind you're using is actually going to... Sometimes the wind you're using is actually going to get in your way a little bit. Like here, for example, it's quite hard for me to get up this last thing, because the wind keeps going, kind of going against me. But there we go, I get up there in the end. I quite like as well that the hole in the sky is no longer a hole in the sky, more in the world. It's actually at the same level we are now. And here's our proper introduction to the name of this level, Between the Pages. Of course, this is literally a liminal space. It is the space between the books. Yeah, sometimes it can be kind of hard to figure out what's going to be an area you can get to later, and what's going to be a place that will lead you to a collectible, and what's going to be a place that you just can't get to yet. But here I'm making sure I haven't kind of accidentally fallen onto a second level, but no, this is all the first level of the Grand Tear, which is what this area is called. And these parts can be quite tricky because you kind of sometimes need to figure out how to manipulate them using wind. But the problem is, of course, wind makes them move really quickly. So you also need to kind of wait for them to slow down, which is something I failed to do later in this level. And it can be quite a pain in that way when you fail to do that. And yeah, this part's quite fun as well. I quite like this part with the little bounce pads, because it's just kind of a fun idea to have you doing this. Like bounce padding from glue to glue. It's a cute little idea, but it doesn't really get used. It's kind of a fun new combination of mechanics. And here we have a little bit of a return to the original level as well, to the very first level of the whole game, where we had to kind of bounce across that same kind of setup. And here is where the wind thing kind of gets a bit difficult, is figuring out the timing on how to get past these sort of windmill things, because it can be quite like of course the trick is to just kind of walk up them and try and get onto the right hand side, or at least the side that's going to be going up, because the way they're shaped, they kind of form a walkway up. You just have to kind of recognize that's what the physics will allow you to do, like this. And now, of course, we're going to have to use the fact that they push us to get across, but that was an annoying jump to make, because it kind of catapulted me over the drum there. You really just kind of need to try and just drop onto it. Here, of course, we need to learn how to reverse them. And this one, luckily, has glue on it. And also, luckily, I actually managed to hit that checkpoint before falling, so it counted. So yeah, before we've had books that were written for us, this time we are writing our own book, and so of course we get to be on the cover. Interestingly enough, we actually never saw the covers of the original books. Like, we saw some photos that showed up in frames and things, but I don't believe we ever really saw book covers in the same way as here. They're more just photo frames. And given we're the hero of this sort of story, I think it's only fair we give Artois a sword. Actually, these little sticker things. There we go. Now she's set up for battle. Yeah, a lot more kind of information about the app that I'll never use. So I'll never pair this game with a printer, let alone with my phone. But it's a cute idea, though, and I quite like the way they kind of included that for people that would want to do that. I quite like how it's becoming more and more look like a book in structure as well. Like, it's becoming a lot less individual pages. We're getting more structure, like more actual books that we're kind of progressing through. It's like the book's kind of forming itself as we're navigating in, the individual pages. Like it's being somehow bound by the nature of the story itself. Here, of course, we have a new obstacle, these beams of paper. Of course, here we have to figure out how to get over here without letting the wind drop. Of course, the hardest part on the PS5 is keeping the wind going. But of course, we see this cloud here, so if we blow the wind upwards, it kind of lifts us into this little secret area. For the one collectible I actually find in this level. Spooky though, little skull. Kind of appropriate for the type of level this is. This is kind of a weird little obstacle, this little bridge thing. It doesn't really appear very... There's a lot of obstacles here that only really appear very briefly. And don't really do that much. But, like, they are kind of fun little obstacles. And I do quite like that they keep the... whole theme going. And that they keep varying the obstacles in cute ways. In ways that you'll probably never see again. Because it does make this level feel very unique. Given its position in the game, that's very suitable. This part actually kind of reminds me a bit of the scene in the original Rescuers with the Skull Diamond. Because of the whole massive pit in the middle. This reminds me a lot of that weird cave that Penny got put into. I think that was the name, Penny, the orphan? Can't remember really. Been a long time since I've seen that movie. So yeah, here it's kind of like trying to figure out how to open the book, but of course it's wind. What else would it be? And here things get trickier as well, because now we have moving platforms that kind of move under you. It's like proper origami platforms here, which is quite cool. I quite like these platforms and the way they work, but they can get quite tricky if you're not used to them. But yeah, we've been following the paper, now we just need to follow the ink. We've got the main matter that things are made out of, but we still need to decorate it. So of course, now the ink is important. And yeah, it can be quite, like, tricky here, but you just need to remember that the yellow parts are relatively static, so you can kind of use them as a breather, and then just kind of move along the white parts before the yellow parts fall back. But sometimes it can be kind of tricky to remember that, like in this sort of situation where you kind of forget it's going to fold back again, or you kind of forget it's going to completely fold away, so you kind of have to retreat a little bit on some of these platforms to make it through, or to be a bit more patient and let them go on their own terms. And these are cool too. They're very shiny, so let's shine a light on them and let them unfold. I quite like how much variety they have here and how it kind of makes you use all the mechanics you have to interact with these little liminal paper spaces. Because you don't really see this kind of thing in many other places in the game, and it's kind of a fun way of differentiating this level from what will come later. So let's try and give this triangle a much smoother shape, shall we? It's not a very good circle, but it'll do. But it's a bit dark, so let's add a little bit pizzazz to it, shall we? Little spiral. That's better. Yeah, we can redo it, but I don't want to. So let's just get them down this little... This is a bit of a problem with this section. You have to jump onto this little thing, because you can't just roll onto it, because it's got that little lid. And that's kind of annoying. But of course, this is leading us to the proper beginning of Act 3. I quite like how psychedelic it gets here as well. It's a very fun transitional period, or area.
I think I understand now.
You have battled through the storm and inspired us to create a new tale.
Something experimental.
Now there is no turning back. Our final story is ready.
Something I quite like about this section of the game, compared to the previous areas, is the previous main areas were like a big field with a lot of decorations in it, and then a major city as well. These were all kind of places that were very man-made, very controlled. This is a desert. It's wild, it's untamed, and it's limitless possibilities. We can't even see a book here. We may have actually gone past the book. It may have been at the beginning of that little section. But I quite like that you can't see the book from here as well. It really makes this place feel a lot more wild, a lot more dangerous. But we'll see you next time as we explore this area and begin Act 3 properly. So I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and comment. And share the video elsewhere if you think anyone else would be interested in this series. Thank you for watching.